Hey guys, we're back. OversteerTV, the podcast. We're back here. I'm here with my good pal Jeff Brown. I'm Anthony Castanera. Call me Tony. Um, a lot of stuff happening in racing. Jeff, let's start off with you this week. You have notes, right?
No, I've got my notes all up here. That's where I keep my notes.
Okay, let's have it. What's your first thing in your mind?
Well, I would like to start with F1 and
Let's hear it.
the guy that you says doesn't have the guts or the intestinal fortitude to be world champion just
Mhm.
absolutely dominated the F1 race this past weekend and led every lap.
And I still stand by my
A
statement.
terrific start.
Yeah.
He beat Max Verstappen off the start by a mile
Mhm.
and just had a I mean a race that you would dream about.
Mhm.
Just total domination.
No, he had a great race. He had the fastest car. I mean, forget it. Nobody had a faster car. Um, to me, the driver of the race was Max Verstappen because he goes, I don't have to beat him. I just don't have to mess up. If I come
Yeah.
in second, let him go, let him go, let him go. And he just cruised around. He goes, I'm faster than the rest of these guys. My car is not Red Bull's not the fastest car anymore. And he
Uh,
beat Piastri, he beat the Ferraris, he beat the Mercedes. Okay, he's just right now. He just goes, I'm just going to cruise my way to another championship and cash those checks. Um, he has no reason to fight right now.
yeah, that's true. He's got
No,
what seems like an insurmountable points lead,
yeah,
and that makes me think back to the race where McLaren made Lando pull over and let Oscar go by. Those could turn out to be very important points at the end of this thing. It might cost him a championship.
my favorite part of the race was at the end where Daniel Ricciardo, everybody knew this was going to be his last race. In fact, it became official today. They pulled him in with a couple laps to go, put on some softs, and go out there to set fastest lap, which they do it for Danny, but it also takes away that one fast because McLaren had the fastest lap point. Lando had it. That took away another point from Lando. So the
Yeah.
McLaren fanboys were all pissed off, and they're like, "No, you know."
Well, you have to wonder if Verstappen and Red Bull are going to be able to maintain because they have fallen off. I mean, they
Yeah.
started the season in total domination, and
Mhm.
I don't know what happened. You tell me what happened, Tony. What's happened to Red Bull?
During the season, you have teams have various updates. They work really hard because the car at the end of the season doesn't is totally different from the car at the beginning of the season. McLaren came with an update, a really good update. They got faster. They were already fast to begin with. I mean, I remember there was like 4 or 5 years ago, McLaren was like one of the worst teams out there. Now they're one of the best, and they got the best update. The Red Bull updates haven't worked as much. In fact, they're very clear on saying that our updates haven't worked. They've actually gone back to some of the older stuff. They did improve this last race because they were really stinking up the joint a couple of weeks ago. Um,
Yeah.
that's F1. I mean, there was a time where Ferrari won everyone. Schumacher won what, like six championships in a row. I mean, the time where look at Lewis Hamilton when he was dominating in Mercedes. You know, nobody can stay on top forever. It just in almost any sport, you know, like baseball, the Yankees have won 27 World Series. They've also come in last place a bunch of times too. Okay. Nobody can stay on top forever. And Red Bull is on top, and now some of the other teams have caught up. And, you know, that's the way things happen.
And I'm surprised that the teams that have started to catch up. We've got Haas, running in the top 10. We got Williams running in
Right.
the top 10.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess their updates have worked.
Yep. You're going to, okay, and then what you do is when you see change, like they made a big announcement. Adrian Newey, the great designer for Red Bull, left this year. He's going to go to Aston Martin. Um, the thing is, the car for next year for Aston Martin, that's already been designed. That's already under construction. I mean, they're the 2025 cars are like that's it. That's the cars you're going to have next year. Though they do that a year ahead of time. The same with Haas. They got rid of Gunther Steiner and the way he was running things. He was great on Drive to Survive, but he was a terrible team manager. They got this new guy here who's a real technical genius, and Haas is improving. Same with whatchamacallit, Williams. You know, then you have Alpine, which had they hired a good guy named Otmar Safnar, an American guy who was really good tech, really know how to run a team. They put him there, but then they weren't happy. They fired him for 6 months, and now Alpine's going down the tubes. It's like any company, you know, it's from the top down. And McLaren with Zach Brown has, you know, when he came in there, it took him a few years, but he's built up a team and he's got a lot of people working for him. He hires the right people. That's what it is.
So, do you see a correlation between Newey leaving Red Bull and the downfall of Red Bull? It's almost.
I'm sure there is I'm sure there is a correlation. I don't know. I'm not going to say that. Oh, it's because he's leaving. The team went down, or maybe Newey's leaving. Goes, hey man, I designed a stinker this year. Okay, you know. He's done that before too. He's had a couple of cars that really stunk up the joint. When he used to work for McLaren, and he came out with when McLaren was fighting for the championship, he came out with a car that was so bad they never even raced it. They tested and they go, oh, this ain't gonna work. And they went back to the old car and fixed and did some modifications to the old car because the car he designed was just it wasn't gonna work, you know.
Well, that's persistence and dedication and never giving up, you know, that you would work through that. So that's all credit to him.
Yeah. Red Bull has lost a lot of people on the technical side this year. A lot of people are leaving. You know, they're saying it's because of management of Red Bull. I think it's more that they've been there for so long, and other people like Aston Martin with their new owners are going, hey, we got a lot of money. We're going to pay you a lot more.
Yeah.
You know, why not? Same with McLaren. We're going to pay you a lot more. They're going to go, and it's going to be a fun rest of the season. Still got plenty of racing to go, unless Red Bull falls off the cliff. Verstappen's going to win the championship, but it looks like McLaren probably will win the manufacturer's title, which is where the money is. That's why
I was asking about Red Bull, because I'm not sure that they can sustain the level that they're at right now. The way I see them falling, I mean, Perez, he's failed to make it out of Q1, you know, a couple times, and I think just the sheer driving talent of Verstappen is what's keeping Red Bull, you know, viable right now. If they start giving him worse cars, and like Ferrari and Mercedes all of a sudden overtake him, his points lead is going to be in serious jeopardy.
Well, look at what Ferrari did last weekend. They got a fast car. They could be running up near the front, but they screwed up. Well, first off, Sainz crashed in qualifying, so he ended up starting 10th, and then they messed it up with Charles Leclerc, and they started 9th and 10th, and it's a hard track to pass in Singapore. Well, the funny you mentioned Sergio Perez. There's a rumor going out now. Joe Soward, famous rider in Formula One, he says there's a rumor going around the paddock that the Mexico race, Checo's going to announce his retirement.
Wow!
In Mexico, you know, because let's face it, he's a god in Mexico. You know, he's super popular, and he's just going to announce it there. That'll be interesting. See if it's a rumor, though. No, there's no validity to it. The rumor of Daniel Ricciardo being let go is true. It happened officially today. Oh God, social media when that happening. Everybody blaming this, blaming that. The driver's going to replace him, Liam Lawson. People are calling him like, oh, it's not like his fault. You know? And they're like, people are just mean to that guy online. Some people think that the Red Bull people, the RB team, should have handled it better, had a special announcement instead of just put out a little press release saying, hey, he doesn't work for us anymore. I like Daniel Ricciardo. He seems like a fun guy. He seems like a nice guy. It's time for him to go. He's past his sell-by date.
They just let him go. He didn't officially retire. In other words, he could move to another team.
Yeah, but I can't see any team taking him. You never know.
the caliber of drivers out there is not that great. You have a fall off after the first three or six, six drivers. Then there's a wide open landscape there, in
There's
my
some.
opinion.
There are a lot of young drivers coming up. The guy is going to replace him, Liam Lawson. He's been tearing up in Formula Two. Colapinto, who got signed, who took over in Williams after they got rid of Logan Sargent. Uh,
Right.
he's been like up there with his teammate with Alex Albon. He's been super. He's impressed a lot of people. There's some new drivers coming in there. The whole
Well,
story.
I'm seeing him more as a teammate to those new drivers,
Yeah, yeah.
the veteran that's going to come in and help the new driver,
Mhm.
make the new driver your number one driver, and then Daniel, you hire him to come in and just toolage,
Yeah,
you know,
yeah,
keep the guy up to date and what's going on, what to expect, what to do.
yeah. Well, the whole thing was with Daniel Ricciardo when they signed him to the RB team, which is owned by Red Bull. The whole story was that he was going to drive for RB for a while until Checo messed up even more, and then he was going to replace Sergio Perez. That never
Mm,
happened. Okay,
no,
that didn't happen. So we're going to see what who knows? Maybe Sergio Perez
it
does
could
retire
happen.
after Mexico and
Yeah, if he retires, then that's your logical choice right there. The guy with the experience that's done it before.
get some points. Get some points from Max Verstappen. Um, what else is going on? Oh, IndyCar. Logan Sargent, the man who stunk it up in Formula One. I mean, it was embarrassing after a while. Supposedly, he has a test for an IndyCar team. Uh, hey,
Which team?
more power to him. That's the last thing IndyCar needs, another rejected Formula One driver.
Yeah, that's what I said. That's where IndyCar is where Formula One drivers' career go to die.
Yeah.
You know,
um,
when they're officially rejected from the F1 family, then they immediately come and say, "Oh, I've always wanted to race Indianapolis." You know.
what I am going to let people know, there's a big rumor. Actually, I don't think anybody else is talking about it, but I've gotten word today. The track at Hard Rock Stadium for the Miami Grand Prix,
Right.
they released a graphic showing 4 other configurations of the track,
Wow.
shorter configurations, where most of the racing is on. They're a little bit shorter, but most of the racing is on the east side of the track, away from the homes. So they say they can have other events, other races there at the Hard Rock Stadium facility. I
Okay.
know IndyCar's been talking about racing there. Um, that would be great for IndyCar if they do come to that track over there. It'll draw a lot of people. It'll bring a
Yeah.
lot of people from Broward. They know the Dolphins and that organization in Hard Rock. They know how to promote things and get people to show up to things to events. It would be a spectacular coup for IndyCar if they can race there. I know you'd be there.
Yeah. Well, I want to go to the Formula One race as soon as we get some media credentials.
Yeah, yeah. They're also talking about that in the future they're going to light up the track and race at night. I hope so, because really sitting out there in the daytime,
Yeah.
it's brutal out there.
Well, it's pretty lit up to begin with.
Yeah,
They wouldn't have to add much lighting
yeah,
because at nighttime out there, it's still daytime almost.
yeah.
I mean, when we go to the night games, we take like Christmas lights and string them around the easy up and everything, but you don't really need them. You can see pretty well. But I
Um,
could see where you'd want to light up the actual course, so they would have to do some lights. But I agree with you. I don't want to actually go out there. What is it in April?
yeah,
Or oh
it's
man, just sweltering and it
yeah,
just
with a mass with 100,000 people around you. No, no, no. Um, for those of you who don't believe climate change is real, come to Miami in April when it used to be nice in April. Not anymore. So anyway, they said they want to see if they can hold 3 or 4 more events there. Now they're not going to hold SCCA club racing there, that's for sure. So how many other big series are there besides IndyCar? You have IMSA and you have NASCAR. Wouldn't
I
NASCAR?
doubt they're going to have NASCAR because
I
NASCAR's got their track here in Homestead, Miami
yeah,
Speedway.
yeah. Uh,
And
which
they
is
have a
another thing.
road course
How long is
also.
that track in Homestead going to last? They keep on building more and more homes around that place. You know.
Well, as the cars get quieter, pretty
Yeah.
soon we're going to be all electric cars, and they're going to sound like a little swarm of bees. You know, and it's not even going to be a big swarm of bees,
Yeah.
just a little swarm of bees.
It's not only that, is when you look at real estate prices, that
Yeah.
land, especially in the at that facility, that land is worth tens and tens of millions and millions of dollars.
Well, that's
So
that track is owned by the city of Homestead, so it's
yeah,
owned by the citizens of Homestead, the
yeah.
taxpayers. And how long is the lease that NASCAR has? Is the question.
I
I
think
don't know the
I'd have
answer.
to check that out, but I'd venture to guess about 7 or 8 more years.
Yeah.
Um, it'll be they
I
used
just I just think that when it was the championship race, it was like the crown jewel of
right.
their racing. Besides the Daytona 500, you started with the Daytona, you ended with Miami, and now that it's lost its luster a little bit. And,
This year they're part of the playoffs.
yeah, and I think if they could get that second race, which I've been hollering and calling for years and years, do a second race, do it on the road course.
Yeah.
Add another road course because the
Mhm.
NASCAR has been trying to gravitate towards more road course racings. They've got another one here in the playoffs with the Charlotte Roval and
Roval. Yeah.
races. I think we're going to Kansas
Sorry.
this weekend, and then Talladega, which is one of my favorite,
Mhm.
and then the Roval, which is
Mhm.
not one of my favorite, but they're trying to incorporate more road course racing. And Homestead, Miami has a world class road
Right.
course. I mean, it's only a natural. They want to get this market. Let's put a night road course race. They don't have any night road course races.
I'd like to see that. I like to see that. It's just when I look at the Speedway, where for years it was the final, it was for the championship race.
Yeah,
Then they took it away. Now it's in the playoffs. And next year they're not even in the playoffs.
no,
They're a couple of weeks after Daytona, early in the year.
yeah.
It doesn't look good. Doesn't look good.
Yeah, because if that second race would make a huge difference on the
Right.
longevity of the track
Mhm.
itself,
Mhm.
because then you're committed and they're committed. Everybody's committed to making it happen.
Mhm. Well, the
Speaking
track.
of NASCAR,
You go ahead. Go ahead.
well,
Go
it
ahead.
was similar to the Formula One race where it was completely dominated by one driver
Mhm.
that led almost every lap.
Mhm.
Kyle Larson, just right now, I don't see anybody being able to challenge him for the championship right now.
Mhm.
He's clearly head and shoulders above everybody, and on every different kind of track. A
Mhm.
road course, he's one of the top drivers. Super speedway, one of the top drivers. Cookie cut, mile and a half tri oval, probably the top driver, and that's where they're going this weekend. I never really liked Kansas Speedway because to me it was just another cookie cutter,
Right.
mile and a half tri oval, like Charlotte, like Atlanta, like Michigan, just like
Right.
all the others. But surprisingly, the racing at Kansas it has been unbelievable. I see it on the schedule and I'm like, but then the race happens and I'm jumping up and down. I'm going, I can't believe the racing that they're doing on this track. I don't know.
Kansas, a mile and a half, right?
Yeah, it's just
Yeah.
a mile and a half cookie cutter. It seems
Yeah.
like it would be like all the other mile and a half tracks. But for some reason, it just has great racing. It has 3 wide, 4 wide. You can drive anywhere on that track and have speed. So I'm actually looking forward to it because you look at the schedule and you see Kansas and then you see Talladega. Well, Talladega is like
Right.
a big, bright, shining star. Like nobody
Mhm.
misses Talladega.
No.
But now I look at it, I'm like, wow, Kansas. I'm not looking past Kansas. I'm excited about Talladega, but I'm just as excited about Kansas. And the way Kyle Larson, I mean, dominated, just absolutely dominating right now. And I don't see any way to stop him. We'll see.
Man, Talladega for me is like they're going really fast, and everybody's just waiting for the
The
big
last
one,
line, yeah.
which seems to happen every year. And but the racing at Talladega's, it's okay. Maybe it's because of the banking, whatever. It makes it more single file, but then somebody tries to do something stupid, and you have the big one.
I've always loved the track because of the domination that Dale Earnhardt Sr. had
Yeah,
on at the track. I mean, you talk about dominating, and we're talking about dominating. He dominated that track. I mean, even more than Daytona. He only won Daytona 500, but
yeah.
he's won several Talladega,
Mm-hmm.
and it's just always an exciting race.
Right.
Like you said, the one of the fastest tracks and 3-4 wide racing when they get out. Like you said, the middle of that race, they all kind of get single file, and
Mm-hmm.
it kind of turns into a gas mileage thing, and nobody wants to pull out and go to the back, and
Mm-hmm.
it can get a little boring in the middle. But yeah, the big one's going to happen. It always does. And that's really the attraction of racing, if you ask me, is people aren't the majority of the fans want to see the big spectacular wrecks and
Right,
things like
right,
that. They're
right,
not
right.
really there to see.
Uh,
It's almost like professional wrestling used to be, like professional wrestling back in the 40s, 50s, 60s. It was all scientific wrestling. You went in with these moves, and you had the fireman's carry and all these different. It was
right,
it
right,
was
right.
true wrestling. They were putting on a spectacle of the sport.
Mm-hmm.
And then when the 70s, 80s came along, and then it turned into the tomahawk chop and the bionic elbow and all these things that were really not scientific wrestling, flying off the top rope, and it just became more spectacular.
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of what's happened with the NASCAR. It
Right.
started with the guys going out, and they would win the race by 5 or 6 laps. You
Uh,
know, there's hardly any wrecks because everybody was afraid to die. Like you said, back when the drivers were fat and the tires were skinny.
right.
And you knew, you didn't have any seat belts, and you didn't have a helmet, and you knew if you wrecked, you were going to die. So guess what? You did
Yeah.
your best not to wreck.
Yeah.
Nowadays with the safety features and the helmets and the
Yeah.
and the crumple zones and the safer walls, you just barrel in there 200 miles an hour, and
Yeah.
be damned. You
Yeah.
know,
Well,
you're going to be okay because of the safety features, but it makes it more spectacular.
it's like when people talk about Formula One, these old guys go, "Oh, it was so much more exciting back in the day," and they go, "Really?" I mean, I remember like back in the 70s and 80s, like you'd have races where the guy would win by a minute and a half, or I mean, they'd lap everybody and all that stuff. And I'm like, no, it's a lot more exciting today. you know, um, the only thing you had back in the day was the cars weren't reliable, and so you can be winning the race, then your car breaks down. People would lose all the time because their car would break down over
Yeah.
something stupid. A $20 part broke, or screw fell off, or something like that. Where
No, they
now,
didn't build them like they back then, like they do now,
yeah,
bulletproof.
yeah, now they're bulletproof, and it's so I watched this thing a couple of months ago about it was a short little 5-minute video about a bolt for a Formula One car. It's just if you look at it, it's like, oh, it's just a bolt. It shows all the work they do just to design and build that one bolt. I mean, it was hilarious. I mean, but it was just like they literally spent like I think it was like 50 hours for a bolt that I can go to Home Depot and buy a bolt looks just like that. No, that's a specific bolt. That's a stand certain
Tempered
thing.
steel, titanium.
Unobtainium, some weird ass metal and all this stuff, and it's like then you wonder
That
why they
they had to get the metal from Area 51 where all the UFOs are kept. Secret metal.
All right. We're running out of time today, but next week I want you to do a little homework too. IndyCar announced a few days ago their charter system coming out
Okay.
now. I got a lot of questions. I got to read up on it more. I want to read the actual charter, see exactly what it says. I've been hearing all kinds of stuff like that. So we'll talk about that next week.
Okay.
Guys, I want you to click, you like, give us some comments, and a shameful plug. Me and Jeff are on another podcast with our friends Jose and Nick called the Fantastic Four. So if you're a Dolphin fan, you can watch us there. If you hate the Dolphins, you can watch us there and watch us suffer. If you've been following the Dolphins this year,
I know poor Nick was in tears. Poor guy was crying. It's embarrassing.
so we're going to give a shout out to those guys. So we do that every week. Also, we're on YouTube and everything. So like us, subscribe. We're also going
Yeah.
to be. We're also on Spotify. We have our Facebook page. We have it. We're on Instagram. We're on TikTok. We're all there, guys. In fact, if you go to our Instagram page, you'll see the maps, the different configurations for the track at Hard Rock Stadium. So, anything else you want to add, Jeff, before we say goodbye to our fan?
No, I just doing two different podcasts a week. My wife asked me, says, "Can't you do more podcasts?" And I'm like, "No, I'm at my podcast limit right now." And of course, she was joking or being sarcastic, which of course you have to be married to me. I will suck all the joy out of your life.
Okay, there you go. There you go. No respect at all, right?
We can do it. We can start another podcast. What the hell?
Well, we'll do it. We'll talk about our wives. That'll go over well. All right, guys. See you next week.
Later.